Hello YouTube and welcome to the Armourer with me, Blue, and today we're going to take a look at yet another game from the recent Pro Tour in LA. This one is between a Dorinthea and Boltyn, who has chosen to go for the Raiden plan into Warrior. I have heard somewhere that some Boltyns are considering going for the Centauri combo plan into other warriors, but here we see Raiden. The Raiden player has already made a very interesting choice in bringing Radiant Flow, which is another 2 block for the cost of a single soul. I'm not sure if he was maybe expecting to play versus Dawnblade Dorinthea, or if he was aware that he's playing against Nax Dorinthea, but overall I'm not too sure that in both cases the value loss of Snapdragons is worth it, especially in a matchup like into other warriors, right? Because whenever you're playing versus a deck that does not play attacks, there's a real kind of danger and situations in which you have hands that cannot possibly be unable to have go again, even if you have cards that your opponent is maybe interested in blocking. In this matchup they will just block them and they won't get pumped and you won't get the option to gain go again and continue your turn, which is why I believe Boltyn is kind of unfavored into other warriors. But let's watch the game. Another thing that I want to talk actually before the game is kind of like the game plans from both sides before the game starts. I feel like Dorinthea has like one main game plan that she tries to go for every game, which is just present as much value as you can both like blocking and attacking wise, because it's simply just a very value driven mid-range deck, right? You don't really have a lot of setup combos, you don't really have a lot of on-hit effects and so on in Dorinthea. It's just raw value, or at least that's how it seems to me. On the other hand though, from Boltyn's side, it does not seem like a game where you can play in that same way, because a lot of your value is non-existent because Dorinthea is not playing any attacks. So we'll see how Aiden basically tries to set up these mini combo turns in which he pushes actually a hell of a lot of damage onto the Dorinthea, trying to kind of win, obviously, but yeah. Aiden is going to start first, I believe, with Boltyn. A lot of the times you want to go first, especially whenever you're trying to make these mini combos, because you need more cards for them and because you need soul for them, right? Like Boltyn is kind of a hungry, soul hungry deck, so having the ability of just sending any attack simply to fill your soul turn 1 is very valuable, and he's going to do exactly that, and he's going to get a banner of courage, allowing him to kind of secure the go again of his first attack next turn. Here we see Maximilian blocking with Fate Foreseen. A lot of the times whenever I'm playing my decks, I kind of like to save these Fate Foreseens and these defense reactions like later in the game and just put them in my arsenal as resources. Here maybe the rest of his hand is just very high quality cards and he'd much rather just use the Fate Foreseen and try to get into a card that is going to kind of enable the rest of his hand, or maybe he wants to play this matchup a lot more aggressively than I'm giving him credit for. We'll see here that he's going to pitch Ripple Away. It's interesting that he did not decide to pitch this in order to stop the generation of courage. Maybe he drew it after the Fate Foreseen, or maybe it was his only blue, so he saw that there was no blue on the top I don't know. But I mean, at the end of the day, like stopping the courage is not that big of a deal. Here he's going to go for Axe. The Axe does not have go again. We can kind of assume that he has kept some go again enablers, and he does have them. He plays Blade Flurry into Blade Runner and attacking with the second Axe for 8. Aiden is just going to block with a singular card and then go for Engulfing Light for 4. We're going to see exactly what I was talking about, just a clean 4 block with the dynamos that Dorinthea is probably going to have available every turn. You know, like Aiden here is not going to gain like the additional soul. He'll have to decide between like giving it go again or doing something else. Boltyn is actually a very soul hungry deck. So him here going for +2 is kind of weird, at least to me, because it doesn't really play around anything. It's just let me get rid of a bunch of soul, and yeah, it really doesn't play around anything, right? Like, because the +2 doesn't even play around things like take it on the chin. So that's why I'm kind of a little confused on why we used a soul there. But the very creative part of this whole sequence is that he actually searched a banner that gives him agility, right? Which is very, very strange, right? Like, usually what you expect in a situation like this is for him to go for like +1, remove a card, go for Lumina, and then like threaten like 4 with the weapon now. I mean, it would have just been blocked, so it would not have been that big of a value at the end, because he doesn't have like enough cards in the sword to give go again to the Raiden as well. But at least something along those lines. But instead, he just searches a banner of agility, basically. And I believe the reason for that is because he knows that the way he pushes damage in this matchup is through big V of the Vanguard turns. And he has a tunic counter for next turn, he has V of the Vanguard ready, and all he needs is just a go again enabler on his like other attacks in order to preserve a little bit of soul, especially when he kind of, in my opinion, wasted some of it. The end of the day, in my opinion, he wasted it, but he probably knows that he needs to squeeze every ounce of like every ounce of damage he can in order to win this game. Because I don't believe he wins in the grind game. But even with that being said, I'm not sure if it isn't better to just play it your late game, maybe where you can swing a few Celestial Cataclysms. I don't know. But here we see exactly that. We see V of the Vanguard with putting 2 cards in soul with 2 cards remaining, and now everything gets +2. If he can attack with 3 attacks here, he is going to get like +6 value off of that V of the Vanguard. But him having 2 cards in hand, he is probably going to be able to attack with more cards. So here we see the Raiden coming in as well. And seeing that he chooses not to activate the gloves means that he probably is coming with 4 attacks. And the third attack is a very big bolting blade, I believe, which is basically free because he put 2 cards into the soul. This is something that he drew. He did not really set it up, but it is definitely why he decided to put 2 into the soul with V of the Vanguard. So this turn at the moment is a 19 damage swing, and he's going to use the last card in his soul in order to push one more card, which is going to be an Illuminate for 6. And Illuminate is something that I kind of want to talk about because we have kind of been building and playing around with Boltyn locally for a while, and we were very excited about Snatch, or at least I was very excited about Snatch whenever I saw Yuki Lee Bender's list some time ago, and I always wanted to fit in Illuminate into that deck. And at the end of the day, I feel like I am coming to the conclusion, and I feel like a lot of other people have come to the same conclusion, where Illuminate is maybe just better than Snatch in that deck, right? It's a light card, so you will gain soul and life whenever you reveal it off of your Lumina turns. It's also a 3-block, which makes it a lot more flexible, and at the end of the day, it is kind of almost as threatening whenever it's attacking, because of how soul hungry Boltyn is and how many ways you actually have of utilizing extra soul. So yeah, I mean, in terms of extending your turn, Snatch is obviously better, but like Illuminate is also just amazing just as a singular card, right? Like even in 2-card hands is like even better, right? Because you can just attack with Illuminate, hopefully it goes to soul, and then you can arson or something. And here we see Illuminate for 6, and as we say, it is basically just as threatening because he gives all of his equipment here in order to block that Illuminate and leave the Boltyn in a situation where he does not have soul, making it kind of hard for him to go for big pressure next turn. And we're going to kind of encounter exactly this problem of Boltyn, where he doesn't really have a lot of soul, and he can't really push all that much damage, right? Like, because in this hand he can like push 6 damage, but he's already taking more from the Dorinthea's like 3-card hand. So he's kind of like forced to block with everything. So I think he is kind of waiting and hoping to kind of encounter another big V turn, or he's hoping for the Dorinthea to kind of encounter a hand where she doesn't have like go again, or she has go again, but she doesn't really have some of the pumps, and maybe she has like 1 or 2 defense reactions. And this is kind of exactly this kind of hand where the Dorinthea has like no blue, so like the entire turn is going to be just 8 damage, and compared to other turns, this is kind of slow for Dorinthea. It's interesting to see how the Boltyn player is going to play it out, and he is just going to use his Sing Below, and this is exactly what I was talking about earlier, where Illuminate is just so nice, right? I mean, in a situation like this, Illuminate, like Snatch, would have also been blocked by Dorinthea, simply because she needs to make use of Valiant Dynamo as much as possible, because that's what her deck does. But against other decks, they would have had to give you an actual resource on top of their 3-block if they want to continue keeping you off of soul, and you can still just put a card into your arsenal, which kind of looking at if I remember the game correctly, is probably yet another V of the Vanguard. And here we encounter a Dorinthea hand where she pitches 3 red cards in order to have his turn, and here we have an even more insane turn where we see View of the Vanguard off of Tunic that now puts 3 cards in the soul. So it's attacking for 6. Which is a lot, right? Like last time we attacked like 4 times, I believe. This time we're going to attack only 3 times. So essentially every card that we have put into the soul this turn is basically a 0 for 3 go again, in terms of value. And here we're attacking for 6 into 6. And then like the last card is Boltyn Blade, which is going to come in for 10. So this is like another 22 damage turn, right? Like the previous turn was 19, 6 was like 25. This is 22. And these are like just very, very big numbers. And you see how with those kind of like mini Veer the Vanguard combos, it's really Veer the Vanguard Bolting Blade combos, he has managed to keep the life difference very, very tight, despite his deck being kind of really unfavored in the matchup, I believe. And here we see him go for take flight, use the one resource to attack with the sword, give the sword go again, the sword is going to get blocked, and here we see yet another illuminate, and that illuminate is also getting blocked. At the end of the day, we have agility and a blue card, so we're just going to be attacking for 5 off of one card, which is like kind of insane saying it. And not only that, but we're also going to refresh the Valiant Dynamo, so it's essentially a 1 card for 6 value. We kind of lose 1 value off of that exchange because we had to block for 2 instead of 3 of the take it on the chin last turn, but in reality we blocked perfectly with it, so it's not really lost value. It hasn't really lost any value. And here we're going to block the 2 axes with 2 Celestial Cataclysms, and we're just going to attack for 2, draw a card is the on hit, and we're just going to block it, right? Like it doesn't really matter. We're going to go for Spew Blood. He has a card in hand. It's attacking for 4, and I believe here is where the Boltyn finally kind of uses his shoes in order to block 2 additional damage. I guess it kind of pays off because in this situation the Dorinthea does have an additional resource on the tunic, so if he had not blocked here the 4 damage, he would have taken like guaranteed yet another attack. But with this one now coming for 5 dominate, I feel like he's taking another attack regardless. I mean, no, he isn't, right? Because there's, excuse me, no go again. So at the end of the day, if we have to kind of compare the usage of these shoes to the usage of something like Snapdragons would have dealt 3 damage last turn, and here we blocked 2, but what really matters is how well are we going to be able to use this entire hand, right? Because the shoes allowed us to keep it, right? Had we not blocked 2 with the shoes, we would have been dead. So here we're attacking with 3. This gets a plus because it has put a yellow card. The yellow card is courage, so it's going to make the sword attack for more. And attacking with like the sword while having courage is kind of unfortunate, in my opinion. And I think he should have attacked with the draw card first to make it 4. It doesn't really matter at the end, right? Because the Dorinthea just allows him to draw the card finally, meaning that he just intends to finish off the game right now. But in this effectively last turn, we can see that the game is sort of very close. It's unexpectedly close. Like these Beaming Bravado turns have really been something. And this is a card that I have kind of been considering only a popper whenever I've been kind of like looking at Boltyn lists. But it turns out that you can kind of use it together with Veer the Vanguard for some insanely huge damage turns that have helped this Boltyn actually keep up with the Dorinthea, right? Like this is the final turn, and Dorinthea is at like 1 HP more, and like it's like 3 cards versus 5 cards in a tunic. So it's like very realistic that he can kind of flip the game on his head right here. Unfortunately, being very low health against warriors is very difficult. Because they can have these attack reactions to just punish you for perfectly blocking them, and it's a very decent punish whenever you're just going to die off of it. And you can't really, in my opinion, you can't really just overblock constantly. Like you can overblock maybe a time or two if it really keeps you safe, and then you manage to put them in a state where they can't now force you to overblock, but that's very difficult. He's going to block perfectly here, and then we're going to get an attack for 6 go again. And he is really thinking here. I'm not too sure what he is thinking, right? Because I feel like if Maximilian had an attack reaction, he would have played it on the first attack anyway, right? Like if it was a Blade Flurry, he would have played it. If it was an Overpower or something like this, he would have most likely played it anyway on top. Because like it doesn't really make a difference, right? If your opponent has a sink below, you kind of cover some of your attack reactions. He will have the sink below everywhere. I guess you can kind of punish him for trying to just use sink below and a card from hand here. But that's still kind of a stretch. And he's just going to put all of his cards on the line, which is very strange to me, because you kind of need at least one card in hand if your arsenal is something that can attack and charge, in order to kind of threaten at least like 3 to 4 damage, excuse me, like 6 to 7 damage onto your opponent next turn. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, right? Even if he used just 6 to block here, the last card in the Dorinthea's hand is actually a CNC, which is like very strong, right? Because it just kills him, right? Like he can't block the CNC, the last card in his hand, the last card in his arsenal is not even a defense reaction. We see that he's running some of these attack reactions that give power and give you courage, which is another piece of sideboard. I think you should 100% be playing against warriors, because it allows you to have go again basically twice for a single card. And yeah, I think that maybe there were like some minor mistakes at the end of the day in terms of soul usage. He wasn't really punished, if we have to be honest, right? Like at the end he still had 2 soul remaining, so he was never like, oh damn, I'm out of soul, I can't continue. But this was a very close game. Especially when you consider he played 0 Luminal Ascensions. So I think if you manage to pull this off, and if you manage to play the deck in that way, it did not seem that bad. It did not seem that unfavored against Warrior, especially if you could have swapped one of his weaker turns for like a Luminal Ascension turn. So yeah. See you next time.